No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, we're going to be doing part 3 in our 3-part series talking about employee engagement and around the different types of behaviors and perceptions that could lead to a decline or a lift in employee engagement. If you had not joined us for the previous 2 Monday episodes, we talked about employees with a negative perception of their organization, the environment, the leadership, the coworkers, and employees last week with indifferent perceptions. And these are employees who kind of run the gamut in terms of the performance. Employees who have destructive tendencies and poor performance, all the way up to employees who have really constructive work and work ethic and work habits, and they put forth effort, even if they necessarily don't have a positive impression about the work environment or you as a leader or their coworkers. On this episode, this is going to be the most uplifting one of the 3. We're going to talk about employees with positive perceptions of the organization. These are people who have kind of self-reported, believing in the organization as a whole. They know why the organization exists. They believe there's not a low ceiling for advancement. If they wanted to advance, they could. They like their coworkers. Maybe some coworkers who have left the organization, they still have a relationship with. So these are really positive people in general, but there's always a caveat here. There are people who fall into this group who run the gamut in terms of their actual behaviors. There are people who have very positive perceptions about you as a leader in your organization and the strategy, but they have really destructive behaviors and they don't perform well. And you have your absolute all-stars who, constructive behavior, they do what they're supposed to do and they believe in the organization. And those are the people who are most likely to be on the career pathing, track to kind of move up within the organization. This is interesting because, again, you might think it's difficult to find people who think very highly of the organization, highly of you as a leader, strategy, coworkers, their pay, potential for advancement, but they act destructively when they're at work. They don't perform well. They don't do what they're supposed to do. But I've worked with people like this.
Yeah, me too. I think, and the descriptors for these, I think, are interesting. It kind of makes me laugh a little bit. But what they say is that if you have a positive perception, but you have destructive behavior, then you are a brat.
A brat, yes.
A brat, right? If you are positive perception, but a neutral behavior, it says underachiever. And I almost feel like it actually should just say achiever. That would be my thought on that. But okay, it is what it is. This is like 10 years old. And then if you have a positive perception and constructive, you said it earlier, that's an all-star. So somebody who does, great work, positive impact on the team, really understands what's going on, is an advocate for the team, the company, the strategies, that type of thing as well. And again, I will just say this because you can have somebody who's an all-star, but due to certain things, circumstances, or strategies, they might be a workhorse for that thing. That may be an all-star, but they might be a martyr if they're just like, I don't know why we're doing this. It makes no sense to me, but I'm going to get it done. So in the moment, you can have these moments there. But I think collectively and in the context of what we're talking about, these are the ones that really, even in the tough times, even when there's something they don't disagree with or they don't agree with, even when they have a lot of questions, they still kind of maintain this positive attitude and belief that it's for a reason, it's for a good reason, and that we should get the work done. So I think that for me, the brat one, the positive perception, destructive behavior, is like, I think of those in that bucket as the ones that are like, I hate to say it, but almost kind of like fake, like not authentic. Like they're always like, rah, rah, this is awesome, this is great. Like, these are the ones that that I think feel good about the job, feel good about what they have, appreciate what's going on, enjoy the benefits of working at that place, and really turn it up when they're in front of leaders or when they're in front of managers. And then sometimes they're a little bit petty on the back end. Sometimes they are creating destructive behavior because they're not consistent with how they treat their peers or how they get the work done. They say all the right things They tell you all the right things, but they don't do all the right things. I think that's kind of for me what that category is, and those are the ones that I also think like, I see them as need to be addressed very, very quickly, because that could cause a lot of damage.
Yeah, you're right about that. When I think about the people with positive perceptions but destructive behaviors, you said the word fake, and I kind of like that word a lot, because to me, it would be very difficult for me to think very highly of the place that I worked, think highly of my coworkers, think highly of my leadership, the company's strategy, but then actively work to be destructive. To me, what that says is the employer-employee relationship is not a partnership. It's not one of reciprocity. It's one of, this company owes me something. I'm here to do whatever I want to do, and the company owes me something, and they're doing it. They're giving it to me. They're giving me what I believe they owe me. So therefore I have a positive perception. But that could very quickly turn into a negative perception or an indifferent perception if I believe the company that I work for, who owes me these things, stops giving me the thing that they owe me. And if it's like a relationship where one person takes the other for granted. That's what this is. That's what the brat is to me. The all-star, I mean, there's not much needs to be said about the all-star. Get out of their way. Make sure they have all the runway they need to get whatever they want to get done. Prop them up wherever they can, or wherever you can as a leader, and make sure there's no roadblocks for them, and let them shine, because that's what they're good at doing. Remember, and you kind of addressed this at the beginning, the differences between positive and different and negative perceptions based on the individual element of the job. And so Sean Graeber, the author of this, talks about this in terms of key 6 areas: job function, culture, management, company leadership, opportunities for advancement, and total rewards. And if you have a person who is an all-star, but maybe sometimes you see something out of them that makes you think that they're being a workhorse or a martyr, meaning they have a negative perception or a different perception. It could be that what you're talking about is one of those 6 things, whereas on something else, they're great. Job function, they believe in their job, they know what they're supposed to do, they have clarity in what they're supposed to do, and they get it done well, and they're an all-star. But then all of a sudden you get into a room with them where they're talking about, opportunities for advancement, and they seem like they're becoming, cynical and talking about the organization negatively. And you think, wait a minute, what is this coming from Lorenzo, who was working his butt off the other day, and now he's talking negatively about opportunities for advancement? Well, yeah, because it could be that the last 5 times Lorenzo applied for a job, he was turned down and was not given really good feedback on why he was turned down, really good feedback on why this was not the right time for him, that it was somebody else's turn. And he has a really negative perception about that, but he knows what he's supposed to do, and he gets his work done. And, so employees can really run the gamut here. It's really difficult to find an employee who has a positive perception of all 6 of these elements of their job, or a negative perception of all 6 elements of their job. It's going to move between the two, and whether or not that manifests itself in terms of constructive behavior or destructive behavior, I think is more about who the employee is themselves and what they're committed to.
Yeah, and I think in the context of like the employees that have kind of this positive outlook on the company, the leaders, and things like that, I think that, and even the article kind of calls it out, but the importance of professional development is critical here, because like they're in a good space in regards to how they view the work. They're in different spaces in regards to how their work is outputting, whether it's outputting in a positive way or they're not getting the work done. But I think that the professional development piece is really, really critical, because that requires there to be challenge, that requires there to be dialogue and conversation about where they are, where they want to go, what do they want to do. That requires there to be some strategies that will have like follow up. And so like, again, if you've got somebody who is in that space where they're like very, very positive, but their work is, bad, destructive, if they're in that brat box, one of the ways that you can most help them with that is to spend time with them to understand what is the work that they are doing. How are they accomplishing that work? How are they building better relationships? Like, these are the things that you can sit down and talk about and then validate as their leader. And I think in a lot of instances, they start to realize that their destructive behavior is not helping the larger team. It's not helping the leaders, not helping the organization. It's not helping us achieve what we're looking to achieve. And I think that's what can kind of move them from being destructive to at minimum neutral, to at least like, all right, I'm not, like, I'm going to stop doing these types of behaviors that may be causing, issues or commotion, because I really do like it here. And I can do that, and I can start to have a better body of work. I think that's where the developmental conversations can really, really have a big difference. Again, it's different for those that are indifferent or those that are negative, where you might be talking about things like minimum expectations, and then kind of like a framework and a strategy that is consistent around those minimum expectations. And now we're talking about a space here where this is more about helping those with this kind of positive mindset to move to become more productive. And that's only gonna happen through kind of their own behaviors that they're going to have to own and work out. But that's going to require you as the leader to really be in a position to notice. And that to me is really the essence of true development.
Right. I think I liked what you said earlier about how you wouldn't use the word underachiever, you use the word achiever. And these are people who they're not hurting anything. They're getting their work done. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I think largely the difference between a person being how this describes as an underachiever moving into an all-star, a lot of that is clarity on what is needed to get there, because these are people who they have the will to do it, but maybe they don't know how. Maybe they're doing exactly what they know how to do, which is get their work done in a very positive way. But moving them into the area where that work isn't just helpful to themselves, but helpful to the organization and their coworkers, the things that get people promoted and get people on a career path, maybe they just don't know how to do that. They just know how to make sure that they're doing good work themselves. And you as a leader can help them get there by providing clarity on that. Because if a person is doing what they think is everything they should be doing, and they're not getting promoted, they're not moving up within the organization, and they want to, if they don't know why they're not moving up, they will start to get a negative perception of the organization, and you'll have these underachiever / achiever people who don't stay there long. They move down negatively in their perception because they think, hey, I'm doing everything right. Why am I not moving up? Why am I not getting promoted? And it's because the difference between that kind of doing everything right for yourself, doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, getting great work done for you, versus getting great work done for your coworkers and your team, things that help the organization or the team as a whole, that is the difference between a person who just gets great reviews every year and a person who gets great reviews every year and gets promoted. And so if a person wants that and doesn't know how to get there, it's your job to get them there. The brat is a real tough one here, because I've been in organizations and I've worked in organizations where I believed wholeheartedly in the organization, but I didn't love anything that I was doing for them. I didn't love my personal job, and it was hard to be constructive in my job when I wasn't bought into it. And so this is the kind of thing that can be difficult when it comes to the quote unquote brats here, because if a person is bought into the organization, but they're not bought into their own job, they might need to be recast. And then they start moving into the achiever and the all-star category. Just because they have destructive behavior right now doesn't mean that they will no matter what. It doesn't mean that they're immature and that they only believe the organization owes them something. It could be that they just don't like their current job. They'd rather do something else. If they're applying for other things that you've seen them apply for that look like they have nothing to do with their job, those are red flags that you might need to be talking to these people to figure out, wait a minute, maybe they want to be here, they don't want to leave, but they don't want to be doing their job. That person will leave eventually if you don't address that and help them get where they want to go.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1-minute hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, for this episode's 1-minute hack, here's what I want you to do. Understand that while people analytics data on employee engagement is aggregate, and you might have certain kind of beliefs about your organization and your team and the people on your team based on the people analytics that you're getting around employee engagement, regardless of all that, understand that employee engagement is a very personal thing. It's very individualized. It's very specific to the individual. We've talked over the last 3 weeks about the fact that there are people who go from, they think very highly of the organization, but they're just not putting out. Or there are people who think very negatively about the organization and they are putting out. Those two employees need to be managed very, very differently. They need to be led very, very differently. The elements of your job as a leader versus a manager will go back and forth here with regard to what the employee needs and what their team needs out of you as a leader with regard to how you lead and manage them. Are they putting forth the effort they need in order to make their team feel like they're getting good work done, that the team feels like you're holding people accountable to the same standard, or are they not? This is where you as a leader have to connect with each individual person to figure out where they fall in this matrix. And we'll include a link to it, where they fall on this matrix, because what you then do in order to move people from the bottom left to the top right, no matter where they fall, is going to be different. And to have a broad brush approach only works for company strategy as a whole. If you're going to change a policy as an organization that is objectively positive, we're going to give everybody raises across the board. We're going to go to a 4-day work week. We're going to, whatever it is, all of those things that are kind of broad brush blanket things that are objectively good for everybody, that's fine. Individual employee engagement that is done at the leadership level is done between you and that employee, and it can only be done if you understand where they fall on this and how to move that lever for that person.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1-minute hack, and I wouldn't even add much to that at all. I just think that I want to underline that idea of like truly moving engagement means that you have to be engaged as a leader, which means that you have to spend the time with your people to understand what are those things, how do they feel right now, and what can you provide for them, whether it's perspective, dialogue, support, encouragement, empowerment, experiences, whatever that you can do to truly allow them to enjoy the work that they do, but also increase their level of engagement. It requires a very unique and personalized approach.
Right. And you can use this verbiage too. You can say to an employee, it seems like, you're always talking positively. I love your attitude, but the results just aren't there. Right? And talk about it with them and find out why. Why aren't they there? Oh, I didn't know they weren't there. Wait, what do you mean they're not there? I don't know how to do this. A lot of things go into that. Or, hey, I noticed that you put forth really, really great effort all the time and your results are really there, but you seem like something's bothering you. Can we talk about that? Right? Like these are things that these are conversations you have to have with your employees to figure out, are they movable? And if so, what can you do, as opposed to just throwing things at the problem, hoping that you're going to get it right? Because what you do to attempt to fix a problem that you haven't correctly defined will oftentimes lead to making the problem worse as opposed to better.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.